I'm Larry Siegel. I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, on December 1st, 1934. I'm your basic Sagittarian. My parents' names were Pauline and Morris. My father was from Poland, a little village, a shtetl, outside of Lvov, Poland. My mother, it was kind of interesting in that she would think she was born in Austria. I don't think Vienna. I'm not sure. I never knew their birthday. They never celebrated. It was a very dry kind of. Both my parents were immigrants from the old country, and they were already older when I was born, because the communication was not really, it was the circumstance, nobody's fault, but it was a kind of dysfunctional family, and not the best communication. Well, I also did World War II. Yeah. I was 7 when December 7th happened. So my parents were kind of religious. I was not particularly religious. It was a very rough period. There was a lot of animosity towards me because they knew I was Jewish, and there was big anti-Semitic. I was beaten up. There was a time when they wanted everybody to go to the synagogue or the church to pray for their brothers and sisters in the army. You got dismissed 2 o'clock so you could go. I went to Hebrew school, I went to Sunday school, I was forced. I was not interested. Yeah. I was partially in a fantasy world. My first memories of art, music, reading, etc. My sister was very good. She taught me I could read before I went to elementary school. My writing was good. They would put essays or whatever, or reviews or whatever, on the bulletin board, or she would hang them. I worked actually after school in the library, the public library, the local branch in Brooklyn. It was about the time I got interested in photography. I looked at, that's I guess I found books. Bernice Abbott's A Guide to Better Photography was very useful. For me, a strong point about why or how I became interested was that it was the first thing I ever saved for. Was a Falcon miniature camera. It was $3.95. It took 16 exposures on 127 film, was maybe a hair bigger than a 35 millimeter frame. And my goal became then to get as good as the drugstore, which was exactly next to my father's store. My father had a furniture store. Okay. I would bring the film in to be processed. So this was fun. Yeah, Falcon miniature. I started giving film to the drugstore. Then when I was reading the books, I took my mother's suitcase to the basement, orthochromatic film, red light, develop a roll of film in the soup plates, develop a rinse, fixer, and I washed, and I started doing it. Then he was kind of nice about it, my father. He helped me, or he let me build a dark room in the room behind the bathroom, which was next to my bedroom, and I made a dark room. We had my Federal enlarger, and I started printing. Then I graduated. I got trays to make up to 8 by 10 paper. You see, I could see. Remember, I'm not developing in darkness. I had a red light. The famous red light. Right. And there's you must have had that experience in the darkroom. There's something happens in the darkroom. You're just in solitary confinement. But it's nice. It's you make peace with it, or you are a piece of it. I would go Sunday mornings, almost religious. I lived on. But I don't know if you know Brooklyn. I lived on Baltic Street between Court and Smith. It's Cobble Hill now. And I was about 6 or 8 blocks from the waterfront, very near the Brooklyn waterfront. And so I would go. I liked to take pictures of the boats Or so I just wander around and took pictures of packages, like I said, going to Africa or exotic places. Because they loaded it and unloaded, and I guess I was a kid, so they didn't pay any. They didn't think I was a spy. So I photographed my parents, I guess, but that was I was a street photographer. I was a born street photographer.
Right. Somehow
it was magic. It was alchemic. I must have been aware, even maybe subconsciously, that it was kind of fun to do this. You got to get either crazy or it's fun.
Both, or both. Yeah.
Or both, yes. Oh, yeah, no, I like the chemistry, sure. I like mixing the chemicals. I have, I don't know if you know anything about astrology. I have a hobby. Photographers have to have hobbies. I do astrology. So I'm a Virgo rising, and I have Mars in Virgo, so there's great emphasis on little fussy, silly details. I'm a great spotter. I can spot prints upside down, underwater. I discovered Metropolitan Vocational High School, which is actually the whole name of the High School of Performing Arts, but they didn't like the vocational part. So it was really Metropolitan Vocational High School of Performing Arts. There was a basic photography, middle, it was the whole thing. You learned to spot. They had sample negatives, which they had splattered, and you had to print them and spot them, and hand them in. You had job assignments. This is before Flash. Everything was with light, so I learned how to light. The end result was to produce a portfolio that you would take to get jobs, which I did use it. I got a job when I graduated.
Right.
So it was different. It was packages. You had to do product shots, right?
Yeah.
Kicks or Rice Krispies or Cheerios or your boxes. My father couldn't believe that they were paying me to do this thing, because he was always thinking it was kind of nutty. I mean, he suffered it, but he could not take it seriously. Most everybody that the Museum of Modern Art had, I liked. Callahan, Siskin, the whole thing. And I like getting paid doing photographic things, So the first job I had when I applied, it was legal photography, but I got tired of it. These lawyers would make the room look smaller, make the room look. It was terrible, But I mean, I got a kick out of it for the first, few weeks or a few months, but then it sort of was crazy. So then I made the rounds. I worked in studios. I did broil quick rotisserie. We put 3-in-1 oil on a cooked chicken to make it look shiny and juicy. I was doing jobs in studios that I enjoyed, actually. Some of the unrolling the background paper, the physicality of it. Some things I didn't mind. I went to college. I took a few courses at night, but it was, it was difficult to find the time and to still take pictures or still work, and so. I left home. I got an apartment. I had to, support myself. So I was. Yes, I had a dark room in my kitchen in my apartment, and I printed. I developed film in a tank, not in the tray. I did photography. Sometimes I would teach children. I was a counselor, bunk counselor, part of the day, and then when they had the special, I would go to the dark room and I would teach photography. So I enjoyed. I was a group worker, and I did that a lot. Eventually, giving up the commercial studios because it was sort of pointless for me, or I felt it was not that interesting, and I'd rather work with kids. And I worked in a few centers. The Education Alliance had a photography program. I also learned to play the guitar, so I taught guitar and photography. Wow. At the Education Alliance, and I did guitar at the 92nd Street Y, and where else? I did photography somewhere at another center, and then I did group work in the East Flatbush Y. I had retarded kids, which was fantastic.